Your backhand loop should feel just like a general drawing his sword. Drawing a sword involves coiling and then whipping it out. It's like the racket head snapping forward. Today, we're covering the backhand loop against backspin. Let's first analyze the issues with your stroke. Let me start with your problems. The first one, your weight is incorrectly placed on your right leg. This is the root of your power generation problem. That's why you frequently hit the net. This is how you're looping. For most amateur players, there are three main issues with the backhand loop. The first being how you load your power. My weight is pressed onto my left leg. Once your weight is on the left leg, you can execute a weight transfer. This weight transfer is what channels your body's power into the shot. But because your weight is stuck on your right leg, you're forced to lift the ball with just your arm, failing to engage your body. Once I plant my weight, you can see the shift and transfer of my center of gravity. Let me demonstrate. We press down slightly. My legs aren't pointing straight forward. My weight is slightly pressed onto my left leg. My left leg is open, not closed like this. Therefore, you need to tuck your left hip in slightly. Step 1. Lower your center of gravity with a wide, duck-footed stance. Step 2. Open your left leg, with the knee pointing towards the front left. You tuck the left hip. You don't rotate it. Let me explain the difference between tucking and rotating. This is rotation. Pulling it back is tucking. It's not a rotation. If you rotate, you'll jam yourself, right? This is tucking. This is rotating. The third critical point is your core engagement. Your biggest problem is that you loop from a seated position. Don't sit back, pull your stomach in. If you stick your hips out like that, you can't generate power. Sink down. Then contract your core. Don't stick your butt out. Sticking your butt out disconnects your core. Sit, contract your upper body. Hips stay still. Let's try again. I'll show you from the side. First sit, then contract. That's the feeling. You're doing this, so you can never use your waist power. It should be, contract, then drive forward with the waist. Watch my stomach. If you don't contract your core first, there's no forward drive. It's like the forehand, if you don't rotate, you can't push off the ground. Why shouldn't you stick your hips out? Because then your legs can't generate force. First, you squat. After squatting, your knees and thighs are engaged. From this base, lean your upper body forward and contract your core. Now you can generate power. Look at your body now, your backhand can engage the body. You must drive with your waist. Right now, you're using your stomach, but your back is loose. You should be using your back muscles here. Right in the spot where my lower back gets sore. That's the feeling. Then you can definitely generate force. When you use your stomach, the power feels loose and dissipates. The power from your back muscles is tight and focused. Yes, that's correct now. Why use the back muscles? Because as they drive forward, the core is contracting and stabilizing, not pushing out. Pushing the stomach out will dissipate the force. The back muscles transfer the power, and the abdomen stabilizes it. That's the feeling. However, your left hip still needs some movement. You must tuck the hip, not rotate it. Tucking the hip is like making space when someone pushes you. Tuck the hip, don't rotate it. Rotating your hip on the backhand will jam your stroke. The only exception is if you're far from the table. Tuck the hip, then drive forward. Tucking the left hip in and then driving it out is the key to the backhand loop. You can't stay tucked after hitting the backhand loop. If your body remains in a loaded state, that's incorrect. Contract, then explode. Look at the explosive power from my body. Without this process of tucking and then driving forward, you simply can't release your power. You must transfer the power from your back muscles forward. Your abdomen shouldn't be constantly pushed out, nor constantly held in. The first key issue is swinging too far to the right. Using the center line as a reference, after contact, you're swinging out to the side. Your swing path goes sideways. The correct swing path should be a continuous arc forward. This gives you the feeling of meeting the ball in front. How do you fix this habit? Practice looping from the middle of the table. I used to make my student who had this sideways brushing issue stand in the middle and loop to the forehand side or the center. Focus on generating force forward, toward this direction. If you do that, you no longer have a chance to brush sideways. You must use this type of training to learn how to drive forward. You're brushing again. Brushing sideways will cause you to hit the edge of the racket and miss. Don't brush sideways, drive forward. A good backhand loop follows the same principles as the forehand. Brushing sideways on your backhand is like pulling your arm to the left on your forehand. Some players also loop their backhand like this, by lifting their arm. Another group does it like this, by breaking the wrist sideways. Some players with less skill can get away with this on a no-spin ball, while others lift their entire upper arm. These are all common mistakes, like this sideways wrist break. This problem is very common. Doing this doesn't mean you can't get the ball on the table. Getting it on is just the most basic requirement. Let me demonstrate a couple for you. Why is this a good backhand loop? Look closely. When I take my racket back, my forearm points downward. But many players, and this is their biggest mistake, pull the racket straight back, because they are used to doing that for a backhand block or drive. So, when they try to loop a backspin ball, they pull their forearm back the same way. You should bring it downward. The elbow acts as a pivot, and the forearm drops down. The second point, and why it looks fluid, I'll show you in slow motion. Watch the arc trajectory of the racket head closely. Your racket head, however, doesn't change at all. Your racket head isn't accelerating through the ball, you're just using your arm. Watch my racket head. This is a high, spinny loop. And now, a drive loop. I'm simply whipping the racket head to create that snapping, whip-like action. See how my racket head snaps through? If you don't snap the racket head, you can only push with your arm. Your motion is like a rock spreading its wings, it needs to be like a general drawing his sword. Drawing a sword involves coiling and then whipping it out. It's like the racket head snapping forward. Nobody draws a sword by pushing it straight out. That's the feeling you have right now. Place the racket here. This is the racket head, the tip of the sword. The feeling is a snap. It must follow an arc. No one draws a sword by pushing it straight or brushing it sideways. Imagine the tip of the sword is your racket head. When you get this racket head to accelerate, your backhand framework will naturally be good. Right now, your racket head angle doesn't change. You're using the angle of your forearm to dictate the angle of your racket face, instead of letting the racket face initiate the action. Now, I will demonstrate the RPB loop against backspin. I've confirmed this with a very high-level coach. For a Penhold reverse backhand loop, the power comes from the index finger, not the thumb. Remember this. The fingers lead the racket head rotation, which leads the forearm, which then leads the upper arm. It's a kinetic chain that creates an arc. Your racket head shouldn't be so open. For a backhand loop, the racket head should point towards your opponent at the end. You need to generate force. If your racket face is too open, the ball will fly off the table. Your contact is almost flat, brushing the 3 o'clock position on the ball. If you add power, it will always go long. Your racket face is always open like this, so you need to close the angle. By brushing the ball thinner with a more closed racket face, you can generate more power. If your racket is too open, you can only loop softly. A powerful loop will definitely go out because the trajectory is too high. Point your racket head at the opponent. Look, your racket head is pointing at the ceiling. Why can't you generate power? Watch closely, this is your stroke. This is my stroke. What's the problem? You don't separate your forearm and upper arm movement. They move as one piece. They go down together and come up together, like a rigid stick. You should drive into the ball. And halfway through the stroke, your upper arm should stabilize. Then, your forearm should accelerate. Let's do it in 2 parts. Yes, 2 parts. 1, 2. That's it. For now, don't use your upper arm. Relax it and just use your forearm to get the feeling. Right, just the forearm. Using only the forearm gives you more speed and power than using the whole arm. Doesn't it? Okay, now add a little bit of upper arm. Why is your upper arm always pushing forward? You were more correct when you weren't using it. The upper arm should only assist with forward momentum. It shouldn't move up or sideways. The rest of the motion is completed by the forearm. Look, I lock my upper arm here, take the racket back, and drive forward. The forearm does the rest to shape the shot. You're letting your upper arm take over. If your upper arm moves too much sideways, you will inevitably brush the ball sideways. So, just drive your upper arm slightly forward, and let the forearm create the snapping motion. Control it. That's it, control it. Good, control it. Much better. To summarize, your backhand has 3 issues. First, your weight is on your right leg. Second, you're not using your body in a coordinated way. Third, your upper arm swing path is too far to the right. When you practice, try to get this feeling. Keep your upper arm still and just loop with your forearm, like I'm doing now. Listen to the sound. Just use the forearm to whip the ball. Then, gradually coordinate it with a little bit of upper arm movement, like this. Loop like this, see, I'm adding a little bit. At the beginning, just practice this way. It's okay if you miss. Use just the forearm to find that feeling of snapping through the ball. Your ability to brush the ball is already very good. But the problem is you brush too much, so the entire stroke is a sideways smear. It doesn't create an offensive shot. Your backhand is just a transition from backspin to topspin. And when you brush like that, the spin isn't strong because the contact isn't focused. I find that a common reason for a poor backhand is the failure to separate the forearm and upper arm movement. One more thing, regarding the drill I just had you do. When you're just using the forearm, it doesn't matter if you miss the table. That is a drill to isolate one part of the motion. Once you've developed the feeling in your forearm, you can assemble it back into the full stroke. The goal is not just to make the ball. If you get the ball on the table with the wrong technique, it will take 10 times the effort to correct it later. So, you must first ensure your technique is correct. Only then will you have a clear direction for your practice.